Hello, ladies and gentlemen. MarauderEX here with another gaming nostalgia story. This is a series I've did in the past, and I can continue doing, and I'm going to. So, yeah, it's a series I've done that I relate memories of a particular game and tell a story about it, because to me, games can be just as powerful for memory as music or scents or other events. There's really no difference in a memory associated with playing a game than any other sort of media. So it's one of those things that I can talk about, and it's a positive thing about the gaming industry, positive thing about gaming history. So yeah, so here we are with X-Men the arcade game, a fantastic game that I have a really entertaining story to go with. So we're just going to add a couple of lives here. It doesn't really matter how many, and we're going to play my favorite character ever, Colossus. So the story that I have for this game, besides the love of I Am Magneto, Master of Magnet, and Welcome to Die, is that when I was younger, my local mall had an arcade, as most malls at the time did, and I spent a ton of time at this mall. Mostly because my mom worked there, so I spent a lot of time there, just hanging out, and I spent a lot of time in the arcade. And one year, my parents asked me, what do you want to do for your birthday? I couldn't really think of anything, so we actually kind of figured out an interesting idea that we took over the arcade. And so that year, for my birthday, my parents just got, tons of rolls of quarters, and just let, it was me and 5 friends, because we were actually playing the 6-player version of the arcade X-Men cabinet. It was huge. It had 2 screens that were never quite calibrated the same, so one was always, slightly different color compared to the other one, slightly brighter. But it was a huge machine that I, to this day, would love to get my hands on, simply because of the story and these memories. And we had a goal. Me and my friends were like, we are going to beat the X-Men arcade game. And this is from, the 90s era of arcade titles, which are just exceptionally difficult. You take a ton of damage. It's meant to be a quarter feeder. And so with, probably a couple $100 worth of quarters between all of us, we set out to do just that. And I played Colossus, because I like his mutant power in this game. It's very crowd control-y. Plus, he's a character that really doesn't get a lot of love. So, but that's what we did. We took over the arcade. We sat there for, it felt like forever. We were probably only there for the better part, hour and a half, really. We were not there for terribly long, because this is not a long game. And with that many quarters, it's kind of like just playing this version where you can just keep adding credits and just keep going. It doesn't matter how many times. I could just sit here and spam my mutant power over and over and over again. It's kind of what we did. Because this game being as difficult as it is, that was what was needed. So, but we actually had drawn a crowd, because there are these kids that have this many quarters, and they are here for the specific goal of conquering one of these arcade games. That, X-Men, at the time when I was a kid, it was exceptionally popular. The 90s cartoon was going in full swing. The comics were, getting kind of dark and edgy, and so many things going on. It was a completely different landscape than what, comic book related media is today. Not to say it was better, but it was different. But we had a blast, and it's something that I've always thought of is, most people are like, oh, what do you want to do for your birthday? It's like, you know what? I spent a ton of money playing the X-Men arcade game. It's a terrible game. It has so many inaccuracies to it. Not just, within the game universe, but just like I am Magneto, master of Magnet. Like, what is that? What does that mean? But we eventually did it. We beat the game, and we found out that the game actually doesn't really have an end. It just kind of kept going. We made it to the end, and it just kind of recycled and restarted and just gave harder enemies at the first level, and it's just what it kept doing. And we just kept going until we were out of quarters, but we were very pleased. We finally got to see the end of the game. We finally did it. Because, again, that time frame, you didn't see the end of arcade games in the arcade. You waited till you had a home version of them, and there was never a home version of this game released. It was done by Konami, and they'd never released a console version of this game. I don't really know why. I guess probably due to some sort of licensing issue, because this was not really based on the 90s cartoon, but actually its predecessor, Pride of the X-Men, which was more focused on Kitty Pryde than the 90s cartoon, which seemed it felt like it more focused on Wolverine, but it never came out. It was only a couple of years ago that a home playable version of this was released, and it was released on PlayStation Network and I believe Xbox Live. So it eventually came out, but at the time this was arcade only, so the only way you could see the end of it was to beat it in the arcade, which was, one of those things that was just kind of unheard of. But we had so much fun, and it's one of those things, it's just such kind of an innocent memory that just it makes me happy to sit there and think of it. It's like, what, we really didn't do anything worthwhile. We basically just poured a ton of money into it until we won. It's not like we were incredibly skillful and, beat the game that way. No, we just pumped quarters into it. And that was it. But it's such a vivid memory for me that even to this day, like I joke with my wife, it's like if a 6-player arcade cabinet of X-Men ever becomes available, I will find space in my house for it. It's not really, it's huge and bulky and just I wouldn't want to maintain it either, because again, you've got 2 screens that again were never quite calibrated right, because they're different screens. They would just have, minute differences like any other sort of monitor could have. But I, to this day, would still love to get my hands on one. I know I never will, and I never really have a reason to, other than, to indulge that memory. But it's kind of worth it. It'd be a ridiculous thing, but I can't say that I haven't, thought about it, and can't say I don't find it entertaining to think, if I had it, it'd be a huge waste of power, but still. So yeah, that's my nostalgia story about the X-Men arcade game. I'm sure arcade games have, a very strong memory connection to a lot of my viewers. I'd be willing to bet a lot of people would remember playing an amazing arcade title with a couple of friends, or some sort of epic event of playing a arcade game versus game, and just there's a lot of situations like, okay, this is something that is going to leave a memory. So I really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this, and you're going to get to see me die to the Blob, who has a mace for some reason. Why does the Blob have a mace? He doesn't need a mace. He doesn't need a mace at all. And he's just going to pick me up and throw me. But that is my memory of the X-Men arcade game, and you know, arcades in general. That's one of my strongest arcade memories. So, you know, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you in the next gaming nostalgia story. So till then, later everyone.